Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Basement Binge. That is so fun to say. I've now had to say it 3 times. This is my 3rd time recording this episode because apparently I don't know how to hit record properly. I hit record on the video, not the audio. So here we go again. And welcome to the backup to the Basement Binge. Man, it has been a long time. It's been over a year and a half since I released an episode. But you aren't here for me. You are here to talk about Captain America: Brave New World. Which I'm very excited to talk about. We'll talk spoiler-free, and then we'll talk and get into the spoilers. I'll give you a brief update on my life since the last year and a half, if you're interested, and we'll have a lot of fun. And welcome to the people watching on YouTube. This is a very basic YouTube video. We're going to see how these progress, but it's just great to be back podcasting, great to be back talking about movies. Let's talk about it in 2 cents, the very first segment where I give you my 2 cents, completely spoiler-free. Captain America: Brave New World, what I think, overall, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think that the negative press it's getting and people complaining about it is ridiculous. I think they're exaggerated, and I think the people just need something to complain about, which is really sad. Like, this isn't the greatest movie ever. It's not the greatest MCU movie ever. It's totally passable, and that's really all it needed to be, and it was enjoyable to watch. It's got its flaws, and we'll talk about those. But overall, I enjoyed it. I felt like it was a good continuation of Sam, or Captain America's story, from the Captain America and Winter Soldier series that was on Disney Plus a long time ago. I feel like it was a good story for Thaddeus Ross. I feel like it was a good story for the MCU. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conflict between the characters. I enjoyed the conflict around the film and what the characters had to resolve and to solve. I liked it. I liked the character progression that they had them go through. It was engaging and interesting, and I wanted to see these characters grow. I wanted to see these characters progress. I was interested in what they were going through, and I was interested in their success. The action, while minimal, was very good. And when I say minimal, it wasn't that throughout the film I kept waiting for the next action scene. It wasn't that it was boring. It was that after the fact, I was thinking about the film and thought, oh yeah, one of the things I liked about the film was the action. Oh, but there actually wasn't really very much. I can only think about a few action scenes, and that's pretty true. Is that the action scenes? There's one in particular that was memorable. Then the rest are short and sweet, good enough to be enjoyable, and then you move on with your life, and it's simple. I would put Captain America: Brave New World in with the rest of Phase 2 of the MCU. That it's just a good Marvel movie, and it acknowledges the history of the MCU that it exists within, and cares about continuing that history, but it is primarily first a Captain America movie, and it's not trying to set up the next huge thing. It's not trying to set up the next huge villain. It is just a good Captain America movie, and it's about Captain America and the people involved in his life, good or bad, and it's interested in telling that story, and it tells that story fairly well. So I liked it. I saw that it was getting negative press. I saw that the headlines, so to speak, the video titles, whatever they were. I intentionally did not read them or watch them until I saw the film because I wanted to go in with my own feelings. However, seeing that it was getting negative press, I wanted to go in with the intention of liking it, and that was not hard to do. I didn't have to convince myself that I liked it. I just liked it. It was good. When I left the film, I said to myself, I actually don't know what people are complaining about. I knew it was getting negative press. I knew it was getting complaints. I didn't know about what specifically. And most of the time, like, I'm pretty good at film criticism. Most of the time I can recognize, I could see how someone would have a problem with this. And I didn't. Like, I even still don't really understand why it gets the level of complaints it does. I think they're quite exaggerated. It's a good film, and I recommend that you go see it. But that will wrap up my spoiler-free thoughts on Captain America: Brave New World. We're going to talk about more as we get into the next segments. There will be spoilers, so if you have not seen the film, warning. But if you have seen the film, stick around. Let's talk about some fun stuff. Before that, let me just tell you, because some things have happened in the last year and a half since I recorded a podcast. The last episode I released was about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which is a great film. But that episode was released on July 12th, 2023. That feels like an eternity ago. 10 days later, in the ER on July 22nd, my wife and I would find out that she was pregnant with our first child. And I am now a father of a little girl who's amazing and changed my life and my world and is so much work and a lot of fun. And she's almost 1 year old, and I can't believe it. And I can't believe that the last time you heard my voice on the Basement Binge, I had no idea that I was going to be a dad, and now I am. It's genuinely life-changing in the best way. Love it. Also, when I released that episode, I had just started a brand new job. I'm still in that job. Things have been great. They've been hard. They've been all the things that a job is, but my goodness, it is different. My life is in a completely different spot in so many different ways. School has been kicking my butt so hard for the last year and a half. I've also started a new YouTube channel. I'm making videos about Marvel Snap, the game on your phone, which is a ton of fun to make videos about and has been going very well since I started that just the end of last year. It's actually what got me to finally record another episode. I'll talk about all the episodes that I recorded and never release it between now and July 2023. But I've really been enjoying making Marvel Snap content, and there, as a Marvel game, are tied into the Captain America Brave New World movie that is coming out, and so they had a season tie, and I thought, you know what a good time to get back into podcasting. I've been wanting to get back to podcasting, get back to reviewing movies. What a great opportunity. So here we are, reviewing Captain America Brave New World. It's crazy as I look at my notes. Barbie was a movie that I recorded a review on. It's one of the longest, most authentic, most sincere, vulnerable but fun reviews I've ever recorded, and I recorded it and never released it. And then the further we got away from Barbie, the less relevant and meaningful it became, and so I never released it. But I've got notes here for TMNT Mutant Mayhem, for the Hunger Games. I watched those at home with my wife, and have notes on all of them. The Marvels, when that came out, that was also clear back in 2023. Dune Part 2 in the beginning of 2024, just a little bit less than a year ago. I have a whole review typed up that I never recorded. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, which phenomenal film. I recorded a really long episode with really good notes about it. And then here we are again with Captain America Brave New World in February 2025, and we're finally recording an episode again. And it's great. It's so much fun to be back. So subscribe to The Basement Binge if you're on YouTube, if you're watching or you're listening wherever you get your podcasts. If you came from my Marvel Snap content, you're a legend. If you are still here from the very first episode of The Basement Binge, back when there were 3 of us, you are just a legend. You deserve something. Greatness in your life. I hope your life is magical for the next year, truly. But thanks for being here. That means so much to me. But enough about me. Enough about my life. Let's keep talking about Captain America Brave New World. That is why you're here. With the next segment, where we give our rating at The Basement Binge, Pick Your Poison. This segment may need to change because the rating was built upon the idea when we consumed media very differently than we do now. And my life was also very different than it is now. As my interaction with picking my poison outside of The Basement Binge has dramatically changed, because the film is this rating scale is based on how would I choose to interact with this film after having seen it this time. In this case, the first time. The bottom ranking is to never watch it again. Very straightforward. Above that is to stream it, meaning it's on a streaming service that you're paying for. You're looking for something to watch, you'd click on it. Or you're in the mood to watch it, and if it's on a streaming service you're paying for, you'd look it up on Just Watch or Letterboxd or whatever. It's on one of your streaming services, and you'd go watch it. Above that is to spend a few dollars to rent it, and at the top of the list is to buy it, own it digitally or physically, and watch it as many times as you would like. According to what I'm actually going to do, it's probably a stream. At some point in my life, I could see myself watching this again in the right circumstances with other people. But I'm going to give it the rating of a rent, in that given a specific opportunity or circumstance, I would not have a problem spending money to go see this film again. I wouldn't have a problem financially investing in that regard to see it, even if I had some friends, which I don't. So that's sad. Why did I say that? I mean, it's true. But nonetheless, if they were like, hey, let's go see Captain America Brave New World again, I would have no problem buying another ticket to go see it. I enjoyed it. It wasn't hard to go watch, and I would enjoy seeing it a second time. In fact, it would be interesting to see a second time now, having seen it once and knowing what I know about it. But it's in that rent category, and that I would by no means unenjoy watching it again, and I wouldn't mind doing that. So on to the next segment, Live Up. This is where I talk about my expectations a little bit more. This is where we're getting into spoilers pretty heavy, and if it was able to live up to my expectations. Hard segment to talk about. Short answer, yes, it lived up to my expectations, exceeded it in some ways. But that is because my expectations were minimal. Not that I had low expectations. It's not like if my expectations are a bar that it has to cross. It's not that the bar was low. It's that the bar was just like, there just wasn't a lot of bar, if that makes sense. I didn't have a large quantity of expectations, so my expectations were small. If you're catching what I'm saying, if that's making any sense. I didn't have a lot of thought about the film beforehand. It was simply a new Marvel movie that I liked the trailers for, and I love the character of Sam Wilson, so I'm going to go see it again. And that was it. And it lived up to that. It was enjoyable. Like I mentioned, it was a good Marvel film, and that it respects the universe that it's coming from, and that we have a Celestial that's in the Indian Ocean, and we talk about the blip. But this is Sam's story. This is Captain America's story. And we're telling you a story about Captain America and the people in his life, whether they're good people who he wants in his life, or bad people who are forcing their way into his life, or he has to deal with because they're in it, whatever it is. It's about Captain America and the people within his circle of life, circle of influence. And that's what the story is about. That's what the film is about. And it's not trying too hard to be something that it's not. It's also not trying too hard to be its own thing. It's just, it is what it is. And it feels connected enough to feel like it recognizes that it is connected to the rest of the MCU, and that forever and always, it will always to some extent have to try and be connected to the MCU, because that's what the MCU is now. But it's not trying too hard to be something. It's just a Captain America movie, and it does a good job. Some ways that it exceeded my expectation is with the character of Thaddeus Ross. Based on the marketing and just the character of Thaddeus Ross, I expected him and what we've seen of him previously in the MCU, I should say. What I expected of him is to be a politician who kind of shows face, that he puts on this persona of the people. He's trying to be elected. He's doing all these things. And then behind the scenes, he's very evil and manipulative. And the reason that Captain America and him are in conflict is because Captain America feels that he's doing something wrong, and he has to defend the American people against something evil. Think very much something along the lines of Captain America Winter Soldier, right? Where they go against, what's his name? Forgetting the character's name. Haven't watched that movie in a long time. Who is like a Hydra agent and is doing something that is very much wrong. And so Captain America is finding him for this reason. Where it just feels like Ross is not the antagonist to Sam. The leader is the antagonist who's creating conflict. And the world that these two characters have to exist in is creating conflict, because that's the world that they live in. And they are just approaching that conflict from different angles, and so there creates some small conflict with them. And then there's circumstances that they obviously don't control that create conflict between them, and it makes things interesting and dynamic. And I thought it was well done. Ross isn't some super evil guy. In fact, his character arc and his story is one that I actually had a lot of empathy for, and I was really rooting for him. Maybe I'm a dad and I'm a softie now, but I felt for him, and I felt for his desire to change his daughter's mind, and I felt for his longing to prove to the American people that he was someone better, and that he was someone who was caring and was different and was trying to do what was right. I thought it was well done. Something else that also exceeded my expectation is that the film didn't have unnecessary conflict for the sake of having conflict. As an example, I forget her name. She's the widow who's like the president's head of secretary. When the conflict arises when Isaiah almost assassinates the president, they obviously begin to have conflict with Sam. That I think is extremely reasonable and very professional for her to have skepticism about Sam and about Isaiah Bradley. However, as information about Sam and Isaiah Bradley is revealed, she doesn't hold it against them for the sake of just having conflict in the film. Like, it's not unnecessary conflict. It's, this is what's happening. Let's work together. Let's, go after the actual evil that's out there, so to speak, just labeling as evil. Like, let's go fight what we actually need to fight instead of just inner fighting for the sake of tension and conflict in the film. And I thought that it was managed well. One area that was rather disappointing is the leader. I think he's an interesting character, and I think that his presence in the film is definitely felt. Like, the conflict doesn't really exist to the extent that it does without him. And so that's really interesting, because you feel like until he is dealt with, they will continue to have conflict, but they can't deal with him because they're dealing with the conflicts that he's creating. Like, that's interesting. I actually quite enjoyed that. However, the frustrating thing about super genius in all, types of film is that it's limited to the genius of the writer. And so whatever the writer's creativity is. In this case, it was statistics and probabilities, which is fine. Like, even the mind control thing, I didn't have a problem with. Like, he's a guy who's got a Hulk brain, so mind control I'm okay with. I'm okay with the leader being the leader. The thing that was interesting is that the rest of his genius just felt kind of like, trust me, bro, I'm a genius. I know stuff. I can predict stuff. And it was enough for me to suspend my disbelief on. I had to be a little bit more intentional in suspending my disbelief on it, but it was, it was enough to hold that. it was just very weak in the way that the film resolved and how it resolved rather quickly, and that like as soon as that genius was no longer being a genius, the film kind of moved on from his genius, if that makes sense, and it was rather quick that it was dismissed. However, I do like that Sam, Captain America, continues to be unpredictable. I think that allows Sam to continue to carry on the legacy of Steve, of being someone who's hard to deal with, who's unpredictable, who's a free agent and does things differently than people expect. And I like that. I like that about the character of Captain America, whoever is carrying that mantle. So overall, that's how it lived up to my expectations. We can move on to the last segment where I talk about my least favorite scene and my favorite scene. My least favorite scene is very simply kind of the end of the film as it abruptly comes to a conclusion as the green screen gets worse. We have the buildup of, even before the film starts, from the marketing of Red Hulk. And then it gets there. We've been waiting for this, and then the payoff is rather short. We have a big fight that, is okay. And the way that the Red Hulk kind of hulks out and this conflict arises is totally fine. And I don't have a problem with how Sam talks down the Hulk. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's more so that it just, like, the film just concludes rather quickly after that. We've been waiting, and now it's over. It was very interesting. However, again, I think that's the point, because the Red Hulk isn't the antagonist for Sam. The leader is the antagonist, which I thought was interesting. So that was what I disliked about it the most. My favorite scenes, I have two, very simply. The first is the aerial fight at Celestial Island above the Indian Ocean. I thought that was interesting. Like, you've got two characters of Joaquin Torres and Sam Wilson who are flying characters. Like, you've got to have some good flying combat, and I thought that they did have that. It was enjoyable to watch. That was the action scene that stood out and was memorable. The other scene that in particular I really, really enjoyed is in the same Indian Ocean, but it's Sam and Ross, and they're in a room by themselves in the bottom of the ship, and Sam is confronting Ross about the pills and about the leader, and Ross admits with great emotion that I thought Harrison portrayed extremely well that he's dying, and that he had to keep the leader alive so that he could get his pills, so that he could live long enough to convince Betty that he'd changed. Like, that was compelling, and I thought it was well performed, and I thought it was a pivotal part in Sam and Ross's story, and I feel like Sam didn't ignore that in the way that the rest of the film went. Sam didn't ignore that moment and that vulnerability from Ross. I thought was well done. I really enjoyed the scene, and I thought it was good writing. I thought so. Both like the scene itself, the dialogue, but also, and the way it was performed and all that, but also just for the characters. Both Sam's response to it, but also Ross, and everything that leads up to that point, I thought was rather interesting. So that's my review of for the third attempt, and I double checked it is recording properly. So you are listening or watching it and enjoying this. So that is my thoughts about Captain America: Brave New World. I rather enjoyed it, and I hope that if you when you saw it, you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was worth your time. Like, no one wants to go see a movie that's disappointing. What you can expect if you subscribe to the Basement Binge is that I will be continuing to review movies, both movies that are released in theaters and here at home. The next film I'm extremely excited to go see, I'm seeing Paddington 3 with my wife. May or may not get around to doing a review on that. We'll see how busy I am. But I love the Paddington franchise. I recommend all three of them. But Mickey 17, the Bong Joon-ho movie, super excited for that. Might do a review on Parasite because I've never reviewed that. And, because the Basement Binge is about binging movies at home and at the theater. So subscribe, whether you're on your favorite podcast app right now, a friend recommended this to you, you're on YouTube watching. I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe if you are not already. That really does mean a lot. I'm excited to be back reviewing movies, and you can expect more movie reviews from me. So I really mean that. I appreciate that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. And I have not said this for a long time, but ciao for now.